preparing to live stream. Oh, it's live.
Says it is, yeah.
Oh, on my side, it doesn't say it is right away. Hello, everybody. I am all about Scouts. And this is?
I'm Dr. Sarah Rainey-Smithback.
And today we have our first YouTube live ever. Oh, there you go. It'll play, but I won't be able to hear it. Sorry, I don't know if you heard the feedback. Anyway, so it's our first live ever on YouTube, and we have the honor of having Sarah on. So Sarah, let's get into it. Let's go into how you and I met. Do you remember?
Well, I think I messaged you on Facebook over a year ago, just before the pandemic started.
Yeah, so, I think it was this project that you're working on right now,
yep.
Actually.
Yep. I was doing this, I was just starting the project, and then I was doing, trying to make connections to find people to interview. And then the pandemic hit and everything sort of was on pause for a long time.
Pause is the right word.
Mm-hmm.
Although I feel there's a better word for it. Chaos is not quite it, but control chaos isn't even. I have to think about that one. But so your project is really unique, and I think it hits at a time in BSA and scouting in general where we are really addressing gender identity, LGBTIQA scouts and leaders, and kind of really opening a box that hasn't been opened before and really hitting it head on. I think faster in a lot of ways than we have in the past in the scouting world. Mm-hmm. So I was going to ask you, what is your scouting experience, if you don't mind me asking?
No, it's fine. So I was not a scout growing up. In my area of the world, everyone did 4-H, not scouting. And so, but when I got together with my husband, he was a scoutmaster. He was an Eagle Scout. And then he ran a troop in Bowling Green, Ohio. Mm-hmm. So our boys were in his troop. And then when our girls became old enough, they were interested in doing Girl Scouts. And so I became a scout leader because no one else was available. It's the same story you hear all the time. So they needed a scout leader. And so I said yes. And then like a year or two after that, that's when girls were admitted into Boy Scouts. And it just started getting me thinking about gender and sexual orientation and gender identity in both scouting organizations, because it seemed to me that they were taking different tactics. So Girl Scouts tends to take a tactic of gender does matter. And so we need gender exclusive spaces, and Boy Scouts is taking a tactic of gender, kind of a gender blind approach where gender doesn't matter and we're going to mix everyone together. And so as a women's studies professor, that is really, really fascinating to me. And so I thought, well, I can look into this. So
interestingly enough, I feel like you brought up something really like cool and important, which is, I don't know. I mean, if that's like a whole philosophical conversation we can have about both units. Because when I hear about people go, oh yeah, Boy Scouts and Boy Scouts of America is finally letting girls in, then we hear that, well, why aren't, Girl Scouts letting boys in? Or, you're finally able to join openly as an LGBTIQA person. And the truth of the matter is, and when I heard one of my scouts say this, I want to be very clear, and this actually happened in a troop that I'm in, where as someone who's a leader in both worlds, I was super frustrated because a scout literally tried to compare both units and basically said that, that one organization was better than the other.
Mhm.
And I want to be very clear that is not the case. I'm the
No,
leader
very
in both,
different.
so I understand both, like the back of my hand.
Mhm.
And they were making remarks about how, Boy Scouts finally let in LGBTIQ people. But the truth of the matter is that Girl Scouts has been doing that for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
I was first introduced to the idea of what non-binary was when I went on a trip with a friend's troop because she needed an extra leader. And so we went on the trip together, and she had a non-binary scout. And interestingly enough, and this is where I feel like more people can learn more about it, because non-binary does not mean LGBTQIQ, like it does not mean that whatsoever. They're two very different things.
Yep.
And biologically, the scout was non-binary. And I found myself, when the person was addressing all of the scouts as Girl Scouts, which is true, that's the organization they're in. But I was like, can you please just call them scouts? And it kind of came out. And so that's when I first started learning about it.
Mhm.
So that's why anybody who's watching this, you do not have to understand everything to be able to learn about this. And you don't have to necessarily agree with everything. And that's the great thing about what she's doing in her study, because you can chime in with completely your opinion on both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
But I want to make very clear that there's no one better organization than the other, not even in terms of LGBTQI.
No.
And
They're
in
very
BSA,
different.
there's
Yeah.
two very different philosophies
Mhm.
in terms of, I don't think they're doing it gender or sexuality blind at all. Actually, I actually very much disagree with that.
Mhm.
But that's probably me knowing a lot more than the average person. So what you're saying, I think, is really crucial, because what we see on the outside versus what is actually happening behind the scenes are two very different things.
Mhm. Right. Yeah.
So
So I'm just interested in, what are the scouts and leaders' experiences with both organizations, and how gender and sexual orientation are sort of experienced and mediated and handled when it comes up, especially through the lens of citizenship. Because I would say, yes, they're both very different organizations, but both have the goal of like raising future citizens. Like that is like, and they both have that kind of core, goal in mind. And now they're taking different approaches, and they do different things, and they have different structures. And I'm, looking at policy analysis and organizational structures, and how those impact things. But, they still have that kind of common focus of citizenship.
they do. And I would actually even encourage you to look at asking at the unit level, because I feel like, and this is across both boards in BSA and GSUSA, both, the culture of the troop or the pack,
Mm-hmm.
or any of the units or 4-H unit, they are all very, very, very unique.
They are. Yep.
And so how they approach things
Mm-hmm.
is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And so it will be interesting to see what you find out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
being are you in one? Are you in both? How involved are you? Some people are in both, but have no understanding beyond, I dropped my kid off for summer camp.
Mm-hmm.
If we're being honest. So this is actually very intriguing to me.
Yeah. And that's why I'm purposely interviewing people and troops and parents from all over the United States, because it is so diverse. The experience of scouting for Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts is very, very different, depending on the region you're in, the unit you're in. And so the point is to get lots of different experiences and kind of look at it that way.
Okay, are you gonna come back and report? I want to know what it is. Oh my gosh, that'll be so exciting.
Yeah. Do you want me to share my screen and show the little PowerPoint I did? Okay.
Absolutely, go for it.
Okay. Let's see. Can you see it?
It's coming up right now.
Okay. So I'm a professor, so I always do PowerPoints and presentations. It's what I do. So
I love it.
okay, can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay. So I thought I would say a little bit about me. I mean, we already talked about my scouting background, so I'll skip over that. But where I've always been in Ohio, I got my PhD from the Ohio State University. I'm currently at Bowling Green State University, which is kind of North Ohio, kind of by Lake Erie. And I've been there since I graduated. So I've been there since 2009, so a long time. All of my work has been around marginalized people and their relationships, their intimate lives, and their family lives, mostly is what I'm interested in. I have a big family myself. So this is me and my husband. This is just this last 2021 New Year's celebration. And then I have a twin set, girl twin set, and Mike has a twin set. They're all the same age. So we have 4 10-year-olds, and then we have an 18-year-old and a 12-year-old.
So you're like half a den, basically, or half a troop, one of the two.
Yeah. When they were little, we were, I mean, it was, yeah, it's been fun. They kind of operate like quads because they've always been together. So since they were pretty little. So yeah, so my research is focused on that, but I also have a lot of experience working with kids. I've been the director of religious education at our UU church for I think 8 years. So I work with K-12 kids there, and I have also worked in our local school system as a gifted reading teacher for K-12 as well. So I was a scout leader as well.
Are you talking K-12 like the age group, or like K-12 the program?
Oh, no, the age group. So kindergarten through 12th grade. Yep.
I was gonna say we have something else in common.
No. Yeah, just mostly I did the gifted was mostly with like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. But yeah. Okay, so the guiding questions for the research, as I was just talking about, the Scouting's main mission is to raise, future leaders and good citizens. And we know, though, to feel capable of being a good citizen, youth have to feel welcome and empowered. Like you have to be able to feel like you can do that. And so that leads to the main questions, how does a youth's gender, their gender identity, or sexual orientation inform their experience of scouting or their opinions about citizenship? And then how are mixed gender versus single gender spaces experienced by youth? And do these different spaces send different messages about citizenship? In terms of trans and LGBTQ youth, how are they included or not, and what impact that has on their ideas about citizenship? And then, and I think this is a big one, is, based on what I find, what resources, tools do leaders need, and what resources and tools do youth need to make make it a best experience for both Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts?
Well, interestingly enough, if you can go back one,
Yeah.
because something came up. And if you go on the Facebook page also, you'll see that I shared something that the Scouts Association in the United Kingdom is actually doing a whole thing on Pride Month, which has a lot of webinars and resources. And of course, you can earn a patch. Duh. I mean, you have to pay a lot for shipping, but we won't go into that. But you can actually go in and you can probably get a lot of good resources there as well. So, and I don't know if you knew that, but I did share that today.
Yeah.
But in terms of the mixed gendered, it would be interesting. Like, it may be good to make the distinguish being going to school versus doing scouting. And it's hard because in scouting there's very clear rules about what you're supposed to be able to do, mixed and single gender too. So I think, like, if I were to give feedback on that question, it would just be to clarify those things a little bit. Because some operate like, say you have 2 troops, one's a sister troop and one's the brother troop, and they basically do stuff together. So it will be interesting to see the results, because again,
I've already done about 30 interviews, and there's a lot of variety. So some people have a lot of, everything they do is in a mixed gender space. The girl troops and BSA do a lot single gender experiences. And so there's a lot of variety, but yeah.
Well, in like, just to be really clear, double make sure that you check the rules for the different organizations and your different units. So what you can do for Cub Scouts and what you can do for Boy Scouts / Scouts BSA are completely different, even in the same organization. So please mind the rules that they put forth, because and I say this in general for every leader, you don't want to put yourself in that kind of a position. So you want to, be able to have everybody work together and to make sure that everybody's, protected in that environment, including the leaders.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen, I've always done where I've done events together. So it'll be interesting to be like, oh yeah, we were with Cub Scouts and we went to this outing or did this community service with Girl Scouts.
Right.
And that will be interesting to see how many people do that as well.
Oh yeah, I haven't had anyone talk about that. So.
Oh, well, I could be your first.
Yeah. So as I was saying earlier too, I'm looking at different aspects, right? So I'm looking at how their Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts are organized very differently, right? So BSA, they use chartering organizations, Girl Scouts doesn't. So I'm kind of looking at how the organizations are structured and their policies impact that experience. And then in terms of content, I'm looking at citizenship, sexual orientation, and gender, looking at badge work. So like what badges address what, how meetings and events happen, interpersonal interactions, etc. I'm also, analyzing the youth protection policies of both organizations. Even though, what we're talking about, gender and sexual orientation, are not about sex, they do bring up issues of sexual harassment and bullying and other kinds of issues. And so looking at how each organization handles that kind of training, in the hope that, maybe by what I learn, I will be able to offer some suggestions on how to improve training.
Yeah, I will say, if anyone's taken, I think they just updated YPT again. Okay, so in
they did. I just took it.
Yeah, in BSA, like they update it regularly, but it's called YPT, and every parent has to take that.
Yeah.
And even the kids, like especially in Cub Scouts, but also in Boy Scouts, they actually have to sit down with their parent and actually have conversations, which I think is really important. Mm-hmm. But I would be like, they're not too far apart in terms of youth protection. Mm-hmm. So that's actually really good to see. Mm-hmm. How was the YPT training for you? Because I took it, right before. Well, I didn't take it right before the update, but I took it a few months back. So how is it now with the new?
I didn't take the previous version, so this was my first time taking it because I had heard it was going to get updated. So I was like, well, I'll just wait, because I'm not actually a Boy Scout leader. I was just doing it more for policy analysis and looking at the training itself, right? And so so I was like, I'll just wait and see what it's like. I was surprised it didn't really address gender-based bullying, but I would think that its information about protecting kids is really good, though.
Yeah, I think it's because even though girls have been let in for 1, 2, 3, I've lost how many years now, I'm sorry. Thank you. It's been a few years. Even though that has been the case, I think that they're constantly trying to update everything, and I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they incorporate that. I think they try to err on the side of addressing it without hitting it smack on, if that makes sense, for this particular issue.
They did bring up,
but they're very, very, very clear about like there are certain things you don't do, and I think their perspective of it doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So they're like, we want to focus on the safety overall, and that's really, really important. So it's not just about bullying because someone might be non-binary, for example. No, there should be no bullying whatsoever. So they take it from that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, and it did mention sexual orientation. It did discuss it, so that was good. I mean, in the sense, looking at Girl Scouts training, they don't have that kind of training that you go through like that. It's not, they have information, but it's not a course with a quiz at the end that you have to do. So it is a little bit different.
They actually, it's so you have to be a leader to be able to access all the trainings, but they do have trainings for the leaders.
Yeah.
I would say that the YPT training for BSA is probably more accessible
Yeah.
than for Girl Scouts. And I can't say that definitively, but like we
Yeah.
get, like, there's a whole rule book for Girl Scouts that you get every year
Yeah.
that addresses a lot of stuff, including YPT stuff. So
Yeah. And then I'm looking at, I'm always asking people how they welcome new members, how they would like to even welcome. So kind of thinking about creating best practices and creating welcoming environments. And then in terms of interview, oh, did you have another question?
no, I said I love that. Go ahead.
Okay. In terms of interviews, a lot of people have questions about confidentiality, etc. So interviews are confidential in the sense that they're not anonymous, because I'll know who you are, and you do sign a consent form. And so the university, BGSU, if they wanted to look at that, my institutional review board would know that so-and-so participated. But they wouldn't know what your data was, because I do the interview and then I transcribe it into my computer. And when I'm transcribing, I take out all, like, while we're talking, someone might mention Lake Erie, or someone might mention a Cub Scout camp by name or something like that. And I'll just erase all those things. So any locations, any names, anything that could be identifying are removed. And then the original recording is destroyed. And so, you're protected in that sense. And I'm also purposely, interviewing people from all over the United States. So it would be, I would say, doing that and doing a lot of interviews protects you further, because there's so much data collected that it would be nearly impossible for anyone to track anyone or be able to identify anyone.
That's really good.
Yeah, so
it gives you more genuine information that way.
Yeah, because I'm not necessarily, and when I report it, I might share little snippets or little stories from people, but I'm not going to say this is everything that, Sarah said, or this is everything. It's going to be kind of woven in, because I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for, ways or differences. I'm looking for both those kinds of things. And so that's how I analyze the qualitative data, the word data. And also, so the BGSU Institutional Review Board oversees the research. So I had to, all the questions that I ask have been approved by them, right? So the questions that I ask for ages 6 through 13 are different than the questions that I ask for, 14 through 17, and are different than what I ask for adults. And so they're age appropriate, and they've been reviewed by the Institutional Review Board. And then every year I kind of do a report for them about how things are going. This research is not funded or organized or anything by either BSA or Girl Scouts USA. So totally independent. I think it's fine that both organizations do a lot of their own research. I think that's great. But I think it's also really important to have someone from the outside do research as well. Because, I don't have necessarily the same kind of vested interest. I do have a grant from the Spencer Institute or Spencer Foundation, but they are they look at educational policy and programs. And so they were interested in this because it's an extracurricular kind of educational program.
And this one, you're hitting a huge target all at once. And it'll be interesting to see, because when the information comes out, I think it's going to serve as like a unique asset for both organizations. I think in the end, if they actually, use it or are open to using it. And if you're watching and you have questions, put them in the chat. I have my phone over here, so I'm occasionally checking it. So if you have questions, you can put it into there's like a little like a comment board right on the side, so you can put questions in and I'll check and ask her. I know that the other question, I don't know if this got addressed, was with the confidentiality and all that stuff. And we talked about YPT, and this came up in one of the posts, and I think you and I both addressed it, but is the one-on-one interviews. Actually, it says it right there. So the conducting the one-on-one interviews. Can you please clarify for people like what they can do? Because I think when they see that, especially for a lot of people who are in BSA, especially the YPT will the too deep leadership will automatically pop up in their brain. So can you please clarify, especially for interviewing youth, what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is not a BSA program or BSA sponsored anything. So youth protection policy, the too deep leadership rule doesn't apply. However, if parents are still, not comfortable with me talking one-on-one with the kid, you could always put the phone on speakerphone, and you'd be able to hear what we're talking about. The only caveat I have with that is, I do, if you are open to it, I would encourage you to let your kid talk on their own, because I think that that's important to have their perspective and not through the lens of the parent or the leader. And the other concern is, especially for some kids are not out to their parents in terms of their gender identity or their sexual orientation. And so in those situations, I think that it's best if parents are open to me talking one-on-one. If anything comes up that involves any information that the youth or they know someone that is being abused or they're going to hurt themselves or anything like that, I do have to report that. I am a mandatory reporter in that sense. But other than that, it's, I wouldn't tell their parents if they told me that they were gay, but they didn't tell their parents yet. I wouldn't report that to the parents. That would be private information that the kid is sharing. So that's how that works.
Yeah, and then being on, like, if you were to, for the parents that are very, very, like, are really wanting to have the phone on speaker, like, again, just letting them, what we do sometimes when, for anything, like, anything scouting related, is if you have to, talk to somebody, like, I have, like, literally, like, put the phone down, put it on speaker, because you have to do that right now with all of us being virtual. We've kind of gotten used to this format anyway, right? Like, where you call up, you have it on speakerphone, but then, like, you're within earshot, but you're not there.
Right.
So I think, like, what I heard you say, just to clarify, is if you do get on the phone with your child, because that's what makes you feel more comfortable as a parent, which I respect that, is that you're there, but you're not, like, right next to them, to kind of give them that freedom to be open about it. Yeah. And then I would say too, if you're also concerned about it, you go to the front of the booklet. My son's book is up there. I have to, like, grab it, but you go through the pamphlet with your child beforehand. And that's another way for you to feel comfortable as a parent with your child, also talking to them, regardless if it's, one-on-one or, with you right next to them.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. And usually with the kids, it actually it's not a very long interview. Especially like the 6 through 13-year-olds, most of the interviews are taking about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. The teenagers sometimes talk a lot, so around an hour. And then usually for adults, it's about an hour.
So that's good to know the time.
Yeah. It depends on how chatty people are, how many stories they want to tell me. So I'm a qualitative researcher. So that means that I I do some with statistics, but mostly I'm interested in listening to people's stories and thinking about patterns and stories and things like that. So that's really what I love to hear. So we just chat, and then also, I forgot to say this too. If there's any question that people don't want to answer, they can just say, I prefer not to answer, and we just skip over it. And I make that really clear to the kids as well. And so for the consent form for the kids, the parent actually has to sign the consent form. And then the kids do something that's called an assent form. So some research with kids don't require the kid to sign it, but I'm asking the kids to, because again, I think it's really important that they have that kind of authority and autonomy over their decision to participate or not. And so, so they sign it. And then at the beginning of our interview, I also kind of go over it with them, like explain, like, if you don't want to answer something, you just tell me you don't want to answer, and I'll just skip over it and you still get your gift card, you know? So like kind of making sure people understand that you don't, you know, basically you show up on the phone with me, you get your $15 Amazon gift card. You don't have to tell me certain things. You don't have to, if you don't like a question, you can just skip it. Okay.
So can you clarify what an asset form is for people who don't know?
Yeah. So
like, is it basically like the same form, or is it different?
Similar. So consent and then assent is what researchers call it. So consent is something that only people that are 18 and older can do. And so
right.
in the research world. And so the parent or guardian would be consenting to the research for their under 17 and under kid. But the assent is basically where the person who can't give consent is saying, I understand what's going on and I still want to participate. That's all. That's all it is.
Now, did you know in Girl Scouts we have that? We have forms like that, especially, you know, if we come up on, and I don't think I've ever really had to do one with parents before, surprisingly, in my Girl Scout troop, but where we go, okay, you know, if you have a goal, both, you know, the leader signs it and the child signs it. And actually I used to do that with the cookie form, which is, you know, not something, usually we just have the parents sign. And it's for the same reason. I was like, yeah, I want the girls to sign, because it's that ownership of like, I'm doing this, I got this, you know, like, so it, right. You know, it really provides the, like what you were saying earlier, the empowerment.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Especially if, you know, if kids don't want to answer a question, I want them to make sure that they don't have to. And so that, I think that helps them when they've signed it and they've talked to me about how the research goes.
Right, and sometimes those non-answers are actually the most perfect answer to the question sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, now, can you break down in terms of youth, adult scout, scout leaders, scout parents? And I think that you're missing a line on there, which is the unit itself.
Yeah, so that's the second one. So you can also participate as a troop. And so, so those individual one-on-one interviews I'm doing with youth, with adult scouts. So these would be scouts that are 18 and older, scout leaders and scout parents. And then as a troop, so I've had a couple people since, or a couple troops since COVID hit, that I joined their meetings by Zoom. And really all I just, you know, I'm just there, I say hi. Sometimes they ask me some questions, but mostly I'm just there listening to what they're doing, especially around work around citizenship, or sometimes their community service projects. There was a couple meetings I joined in for a couple units, just to kind of hear what they're doing, how they're working it out. And so for that, the troop then receives a $15 Amazon gift card. They can use it for whatever they want. Those are a little bit different because I don't record it. I don't take pictures, and I just take notes. That's all I do. It's like field.
Now, to be clear, like if like all four of your girls, for example, say like your girls were not like in your family, say those, you know, I had two sets of, you know, same age twins. If all four of them participated, do they get one gift card, or do they each get their own separate gift card?
So if I did an interview with each of them, they each get their separate gift card. If I'm just listening in on their unit meeting or their, I've been to a couple, I just lost what they're called.
Pack?
Girl Scouts has this World Thinking Day.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking Day activities, because that's very citizenship orientated. So, some of those I've been to. The troop itself will get the $15 gift card, not because I don't do any one-on-ones at those. I'm not talking directly to any kid. I'm not, there's no kind of individual one-on-one at all. And I'm not recording and I'm not taking pictures. So it's really just me sort of looking at how people interact, what kind of conversations people are having, what kind of topics that they're talking about, that kind of thing. So
awesome. And I want to clarify too with two things. One is for when you say all gender, all ages, that is for everybody, right? So you could be straight, you can be it does not really, this is we don't want people to feel like they have to fit into a certain gender or orientation, right?
No, not at all. And so at this point, I have interviewed quite a few cisgender. So that means the people that are still identify with the sex that they were assigned at birth. That's what cisgender means. So I have interviewed quite a few cisgender Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and quite a few straight Scouts. And so at this point, I'm really wanting to get more Scouts that identify as gay, lesbian, or bisexual or queer, and trans Scouts or non-binary Scouts. I also am interested in, I don't have that many girl BSA Scouts. So I'm looking for more, especially people that just got their Eagle Scout. I'm really interested in there's this awesome inaugural class of female BSA Eagle Scouts. And I would love to interview some of them. So that's kind of the section of people that I need more interviews of.
Right. But you'll take anybody, right?
Oh yeah.
So I just want to make that really clear. Yeah. That's really, really cool. In terms of the troop, are you also open? Because, BSA is a little bit different. So you have the troops, which are the older Scouts. Mm-hmm. Are you interested in packs or the young or dens at the younger level?
Okay. Yep, both. Yep.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah. And I do have a little bit of limited money. I had a lot more, but then I rearranged the budget because travel was basically forbidden for so long. But now that travel is opening up again, depending on where you are, I might be able to visit in person as well. So, but a lot of times people are still having a lot of virtual things. So that's pretty easy for me to pop in on.
Yeah, and hybrid too. So I know our pack troop are both hybrid.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that depending on the where you're at, I'm also totally willing to give back by doing if you want me to be a guest speaker on a particular topic, like what it's like to be a professor, or if your Girl Scout troop or Boy Scouts or anything want to do that kind of work as well, I'm happy to do that as well. Otherwise, I'll just be a fly on the wall or square in the Zoom, box. I think that's
awesome.
I just have my contact information there.
Oh no, that is perfect. And again, I shared this on All About Scouts. I'll share this as well as another live on All About Scouts as well. And then you and I can follow up. So we could choose a time to do that, and then we can follow up. But my other question to the towards the end is what is the ultimate goal, and how are you going to use the information and that kind of stuff in this research?
So the ultimate goal is, this will be my next book. So the book it'll be by a university press, so it'll be sort of academic, but it should be more accessible to anyone that's interested in these topics. And then I also will publish a couple papers that are more so in the academy, or we publish in research journals that are peer reviewed, which means I write an article and then these people review it and make sure that it's like meets these standards, and if it does, then the journal might choose to publish it. Those kinds of articles tend to be a little bit more stuffy and not super accessible to people, but I have to do them for my promotion and to move up in my field. And so the book, though, will be more accessible. And then I'll do research presentations. So like I'm presenting at the National Women's Studies Association conference in November about World Thinking Day, actually, and citizenship and gender and Girl Scouts. So, yeah.
So it would be really interesting, like, to actually have a follow-up with you as well, to kind of follow up with everybody about what you found and all that stuff. Do you plan on sharing this with like BSA or GSUSA at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've reached out to both organizations. Girl Scouts USA is very interested. BSA is in a different position right now with the bankruptcy and the reorganization and the lawsuits, and so they are aware. They haven't been enthusiastic about anything. Does that make, like, I think they're just in a different spot. But yeah, I definitely will share, and I would love for them to take me up on any offer to provide feedback. But there are some amazing organizations doing a lot of work to provide BSA and Girl Scouts feedback as well. I mean, there's the Scouts for Equality, although they're not active necessarily anymore, but you know, they've done a lot to offer a lot of things to BSA. And there's a new Facebook group that's giving a lot of feedback to BSA about a variety of issues as well. So I think the more people,
yeah, if you're
is important.
Yeah, we have, like, so I know that both organizations watch my page pretty closely.
Mm-hmm.
And they watch the groups also.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and I don't know at what level for each group, because I can't speak to that, but I at least know from BSA side that, you know, they are really actually supportive of wanting to hear back from other people. So like, if you have comments, like, that's why I always say share your feedback on a post I do, because they do see that. And I think that they have adjusted a lot of things accordingly, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be really interesting to see this. Again, like, her contact information's right there. So if you want to participate, you know, feel free. And when we talk, like, someone asked me this question on another live before, but you'll see, and it was funny because Sarah and I both logged in, and we both automatically did this, is we put our pronouns on there. And, you know, so we both are the she and her, right? So I think it's really important. I'm just going to plug it because it's the month to learn about it, is that pronouns are like really helpful, not just for you, but for other people as well. So everybody feels welcome. And it's something that is, a lot of areas have adopted it. So I encourage you guys to think about, like, when you do that, you know, it's just to make sure that everyone feels welcome, you know, no matter who they are. But I hope that's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put the link below as well to the post, so you guys have all the information, and I will post your contact information also on the YouTube video as soon as it fully uploads as not a live, but just a normal video, and I'll go in and I'll edit and I'll add all that information in. And I'll send you the link too, Sarah, so you can see it and respond and all that good jazz.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I can't wait to do the follow-up. I can't wait to hear how things go.
Things are going. Yeah. Awesome.
And I love your hair again. Can you come do mine?
I don't do my own hair. I have a really great hairdresser in Bowling Green.
That's what I need. I really would like to do purple. I promised my scouts I would do it purple, and my hair, the dye did not work. I was kind of shocked.
Yeah, I have to bleach. So you usually have to bleach your hair. So it's hard.
But my hair is so long. It's taken so long to grow it out. I'm so, maybe I'll use Splat then. Splat is pretty good. Because you can do it in your hair without having to actually bleach it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, everyone have a great evening. I'm gonna go have some pizza with my family.
Yum.
Mhm.
I gotta go make some dinner too.
Okay,
It's good to
bye.
see you again. Talk to you later.
Bye.